One of the pieces of advice we'd often give to children in answering worded questions is underline the key words. But what are key words? Well, to help children to deconstruct worded questions, it's really crucial we help them to make connections between questions, identify what key information is, and to be able to see how one question relates to the other. So it's not just they're learning different kinds of worded questions in isolation. Now, I want to have a look at question 2 and 3 here. This is an example of what I'd call a pair of minimally different questions. This is a technique I use right across the age range. Kim has 4 pens, Eve has 2 pens. How many pens do they have altogether? The answer is 6, and the visual representation helps to show that. Now we have a minimally different question. There's essentially one keyword that's different here. Kim has 4 crayons. Eve has 2 more crayons than Kim. How many crayons they have altogether? Now, children just underline the word more. They might think the answer is 6. But if we compare to the question above to the question below, we see that Eve having 2 more is not the same as adding 2. We need to work out how much Eve has to work out how many they have altogether. Comparing those 2 questions really highlights that all-important difference in wording. Let's have a look at another example. Children can often struggle with questions involving calculating the difference. We may see the key word as being more, so we can offset these 2 questions against each other, look at how they're different. Jen has 4 sweets. Amy has 3 more sweets than Jen. How many sweets does Amy have? Compared to Kim has 4 sweets, Rose has 3 sweets. How many more sweets does Kim have than Rose? And children can first of all discuss, the questions have the same answer, or do they not have the same answer? And then we can see the solution modelled to the question on the left, the solution modelled to the question on the right, and how they're not the same. Now, of course, what this really highlights is the difference between 3 more and those keywords in this instance, how many more? And it's the comparison of the 2 questions that really highlights that. Now here, in children making connections between questions, this is an example from Deconstructing Word Questions for Year 6. It's a very different technique used. These aren't minimally different questions, quite the opposite. What they are is questions that have the same mathematical structure, but very different packaging, what we might call different surface features. Now, it might be the children look at the questions and think there's a money question, a shape question, and a measures question. Well, actually, the questions follow the same mathematical structure. If we put the questions together, it helps children to make those connections. For these questions, what children need to do is compare the pieces of information and have a look at what's the same and what's different about the first line and the second line in the first question, or pattern A and pattern B, and those 2 lengths. And then look at the difference in the values and perform the calculations. And the key thing is having questions for children to compare, make comparisons between that are related to one another. So in children's independent questions, where there are connections between those questions, we can really emphasize those connections, helping children to build up a rich understanding of problem solving where it comes to breaking down wording.